I was asked earlier to tell people what was happening with the live stream, and just to get a sense of the numbers of people that were on the other side, that were not in the room with us. And on Thursday, we had more than 400 people that actually watched the event. And yesterday, we had around more than 1,000 people that actually watched us. And today, at the beginning of the day, it was around 250 or something. So we've been doing very well. And I received also, just to give you an idea of where people were watching us. So it was all over Canada. So we had people from Saint Albert, Gatineau in Quebec, Longueuil. Of course, I can't see. It's Revelstoke, Smithers, North Bay, and we had Yellowknife, St. John, Grand Cache, Morinville, and people from the United States, Italy, Australia, Germany, Indonesia, United Kingdom, Brazil, Spain, and Netherlands. So that's wonderful. Yeah, so.
I get you a link.
Okay, so we forgot, you know, like there's when you organize a conference such as this one, there's always little details that you forget. So they fall through the cracks. And I realized today that we forgot to put the link to the live stream on the program. So I apologize for this. That's, you know, but we will put it up on Facebook, and we will also make sure to, like, if you have cards, like I can take your cards and we'll send that to you. Like there's already several people who gave me their cards, and we'll send you the link, and then you can, you know, send it to other people that you know. But we'll put it on our Facebook, and we'll put it also on the Faculty of Native Studies Facebook and Twitter, and we'll do also on our own web page, the Rupert Land Center for Métis Research, to make sure that you will get access to the live stream. And then people have asked me, you know, like, how long will it stay there? Well, we hope that it will stay forever, because I think it's an important, what happened today was, and since Thursday, it's been very exhilarating, but also extremely important. Some of the discussions were fantastic. And it's like an archive in some ways, you know, like, so we hope that we want to keep it, and I'm hoping, we had somebody throughout since Thursday that was taking notes, so the person has been really, you know, working hard in taking the notes, so I'm hoping that with those notes, and also I had students, they were like spies, you know, out there taking notes, and so I'm hoping by bringing all this together to write a report that RCMR is going to publish, and eventually we will publish what was presented here at the conference as a book. So, but we're not there yet. We'll do the other stuff before that. Okay, so I'll let Chris take over now, because I know you're very tired, and I think you've been absolutely incredible and extremely patient. So, so we'll try to finish early, and but I'll let Chris take over, and then I'll come back for the closing.
Sure, thanks. I just want to remind people, or tell you for the first time, if you haven't heard about the round dance that's taking place tonight on campus at 7 o'clock. I can't remember where it's taking place now that I tell you that. Is it the Education Gym? It's at the Education Gym. And Shana Dion and Aboriginal Student Services Centre does an unbelievable job with the round dance every year. It's a very friendly, welcoming it's a great place to go and hang out for a couple of hours. So if you guys aren't doing anything tonight, if you're not busy and if you're not sleeping, you can feel free to go over. Gabriel Daniels has to leave, but he wanted to come up and say a couple of words before he left, I'm told. Is that actually so?
Yeah,
it is now?
I mentioned it, and then I didn't know it was actually happening.
Yeah, please come up.
Hello. I just wanted to thank everyone, and thank you, Chantelle, for getting this together. This is awesome. I just wanted to say I've been listening to everyone and their concerns and questions and things they like to point out, and all good, valid. I think it's important to have these discussions so we're all kind of clear and on the same page. But what I'm fearful is that we're just going to keep talking and keep dissecting. I think going forward, we really need to keep having these discussions, but also making sure that we're moving forward in the right direction. So the whole identity thing, I was just thinking about it. What I would like to see, and I know it's not going to happen, but if all those 5 organizations were to join together, however that works, I don't know. Like, we all know who we are, right? Like, together though, nationally, I think we would weed out all those who have those, yeah, like the false people who are like, oh yeah, like my great-great-grandmother slept with an Indian once, so. But you know what I mean? Like, together, nationally, across the board, I think, I know it sounds very broad and I'm leaving out a lot of details, but anyhow, I just wanted to say thank you, and let's not talk too much. I gotta go home. I was supposed to go home tomorrow. I'm sorry I'm missing the round dance. I gotta get home. My daughters they need me, so.
So we have a community forum scheduled for now, and I was reading a couple of things that some of my students sent to me about some lunkheads online, laughing at the fact that some of the Indigenous academics yesterday were getting a talking to by the elders as if that was a bad thing. Right? I mean, this is something I grew up with. This is something that a lot of us grew up with. It's a very important part of keeping us humble. It's a very important part of who we are. That's not to dismiss what those of us in the academy are seeing as really important work that we're doing and that we're undertaking. But I find it so funny that someone would make fun of us for being in a privileged position where, first of all, we have elders and political leaders who are willing to have conversations with us and talk to us about the kinds of things that we missed, and that we have the ability to sit and listen to those kinds of things. To me, it's an amazing kind of privilege to be able to feel that and to be able to connect with the people when they give us these very well-intended and very legitimate criticisms. And of course, as an academic, you know, you're used to picking on other people, but you don't like it so much when people are kind of dissecting your stuff. But that's par for the course, and that's the job. And interestingly, I met Harry Daniels for the first time in 2001, and I don't want to turn this into, well, I met Harry Daniels, but it was and this is just randomly just happened. It was in a bar in Winnipeg, and I met him and Paul Chartrand at the same time for the first time. And him and Paul Chartrand sat down with me and a Maori friend from New Zealand for 8 hours and talked about all the political elements. And it was a turning point in my professional life as a young academic, just to see the amount of confidence and the amount of swagger that just oozed off these guys. And they didn't give a shit whether you thought they were Indian or Métis or whatever. It was so amazing. And it was, you know, I come from a big Métis family, and I have uncles that are very similar to the kinds of swagger and the kinds of confidence that they had, but it was so amazing to kind of see that and then see them articulated in the way that it ended up getting articulated. So I just wanted to kind of relay that because he had a profound effect on me as an academic. And in fact, a lot of the research that I did after I met him and a lot of the stuff that I wrote after I met him was because of the experience of learning that I had from him when I met him. So the last little while here is supposed to be a community forum. I see that we have people have begun to trickle out with their various other obligations, and I know it got pretty hot here earlier when the other door got shut, so people were getting a bit sleepy. But I still want to give an opportunity for people who want to come up to a mic and just say whatever you want to say. You can talk about what you learned from the conference. You can talk about where you think that we should be going or where we need to go, for goodness sake, don't talk to me, talk to the other folks in the audience, because there's a lot of community people that came out to this, and in fact a lot of community people that have stayed as well. So thank you very much for making the journey down here for those of you who are outside the city, and thanks very much for those in the city for making the journey here when it's such a nice day outside, and those have been in fairly short supply. Well, not me, I love the cold, but for those of you who don't love the cold. So with that, I'll invite anybody that wants to come up to the mic to speak to feel free to come up and speak. And you don't have to ask a question, which hasn't really been a problem in the past, but welcome. But you're not speaking to me, you're speaking to them. So.
Yes. I just thought that your academic minds could put some thought into creating a chair, Harry Daniels chair here at the university, and perhaps that chair could schedule a meeting like this every 2 years or so on. We need to keep talking. I know that we were told not to talk, but do. But we need to come together and be confident that the kinds of things which we are facing right now. I mean, when you think how chaotic this world is right now, with Donald and his finger on the nuclear button, is just so scary. But irregardless of that, what needs to be recognized are the leaders in a very substantive way. And just a suggestion, and I'm putting the challenge towards you, Chris.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Beaudin. First, I just want to, I really enjoyed the last 2 days talking to the people that attended here, and I want to invite you guys to, whether you can get to Ottawa or webinar it, but we're holding our Daniels Symposium in Ottawa on the 21st and 22nd of March. And we've invited the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Carol Bennett, and we also invited the Prime Minister. But I just want to touch on a couple things there that when I was here, I came here wanting to meet people. I figured I'd probably run into some relatives, which is kind of exciting to me. And one of the people from one of the Métis settlements came up to me and he said, "So, you're with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, he goes, "Well, Daniels came out of the Congress." And when I look back at the history of CAP, I mean, we've been around for 45 years, 71, and one of our biggest leaders was Jim Sinclair. And of course, he was at the table with respect to the Constitution, and it was CAP that actually got Métis into the Constitution in '82. And I had I didn't have an opportunity to meet Mr. Daniels, but I certainly had an opportunity to meet Mr. Jim Sinclair. And the first time I ever met him was in 1994 when I was a youth. So, and I was at a CAP AGA, and he walked in, come off the plane, ran for the presidency, and won, and just like that. And what was particularly stunning is his way he spoke to people and stuff. And right then, that's when I decided to get involved about who I was in terms of a little bit of political movement there. And but in 1997, when Daniels was launched, it's been almost 17 years now. And one of the comments that one of the Métis people said to me here was that you guys were pregnant for 17 years, and you gave birth, and along comes somebody, an organization, and takes your baby away. And it was kind of an interesting way to put it, because really, when I sat at the table at the CAP board table representing Saskatchewan, Joe Magnet was the litigator, and he would come to the table all the time, and he would tell us the number of opposition he would run into with respect to this case from day one. And it was unfortunate. I mean, you had MNC, you had AFN, even AFN, which is kind of surprised me, but that's how it materialized. And I'm not just making this up because it's in the dockets of the Supreme Court, it's in the dockets of the federal court ruling, that kind of stuff. So it was a learning experience for me. So what I'm stressing here is that, and I actually heard this numerous times, is that we need to bring it all into one moment. Everybody has to work together. And that's what I'd like to see. I'm not interested in infighting. And I mean, I found out through a genealogist that I was related to David Chartrand. So now I can call him my cousin. So, I mean, that's the kind of things, right? What are we doing? And I'm hoping that this will get us, further with respect to what we're trying to do as Indigenous people in this country. So, anyways, thank you. I really appreciated meeting all you people, and I hope to see you again.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lorne Ladouceur from Buffalo Lake Métis Settlement. I'm a counselor there. And I'd just like to thank everybody who put this conference together. It was a lot of good things came out of this. I learned a lot. And I'm proud to say to all the Métis people out there that got scholars and are lawyers, doctors, we come a long ways. And I'd like to put it out there. My late brother, Earl Lavely, he got murdered in 1971 in Lac La Biche. And he was a Métis leader at the time, prior to him to getting murdered that year. And Mr. Harry Daniels used to live with us. And he was a great friend of my brother's. And Mr. Harry Daniels used to go to meetings, different meetings of my late brother. And somewhere along the way, he wasn't mentioned. He did a lot of groundwork for the Métis people, and I think he should have some sort of recognition. And Harry Daniels was a very close friend. He even was a pallbearer for my late brother. And I was very glad to meet his son here. And I just want to thank you.
Is this on? I just want to thank everybody for coming out here. My name is Chantelle Daniels. Harry Daniels was my father. My father's dream was not for this to divide us and to have questions about who we are, and he wanted to bring us together. And I think that's very important right now. Someone who works in corrections, I can tell you, our people are languishing on the streets, in remands, in federal penitentiaries, and we need a strong community. So let's use this to bring us all together and to be one, because at the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters. Because when these people are released, they don't have a strong community. But you know what they do have? They have a strong gang community, they have a strong drug community, and they have their fellow prostitutes. So let's come together and bring our people up and rise up. Because we shouldn't be having questions of division and who we are, because we know who we are. And let's not anyone let us tell that to us. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Victoria Norris. I'm from Calgary area, and I just want to say thank you. This is a great conference. I learned a lot, amazing panel of discussions. But from a mother's heart and perspective, I would just like to suggest that we may want to consider, when we're thinking about memberships, we want to remember that our Aboriginal peoples have the highest rate of suicide, the highest rate of incarceration among peoples in Canada. And identity is a key issue for our teens. And we need to be mindful when we're making decisions for our future generations that we are inclusive. because we don't want to push them away. And I just want to say thank you very much.
I'm not a politician, but I just want to face you guys here. So, my name is Sophia Hamelin. I'm a Cree from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. But as you could see, I'm mixed as well. So most likely I'm probably Métis and First Nation, as a lot of people have been legislatively, termed to be, I guess. I just want to say thank you for having this conference and allowing just regular people to kind of show up and partake. I've always wondered what Métis means to people. Just knowing that my grandmother and grandfather were from East Prairie Settlement, and how I end up this way, and then I'm actually a treaty card-carrying Native with grandmas that are Métis and a grandpa that's Russian and a grandma that was Cree. So it is about identity and the government and this legislation kind of defining people and kind of confusing people, and growing up on a reserve like that, and having questions about my own identity and place of belonging. And I guess, skin color aside, I guess I feel like it was always the land that brought us together, that I've always felt connected with everyone. The animals, the hunting and fishing, trapping with my dad, and being out on the land, going to like the cabin, and especially participating in Native spirituality, going to sweats and smudging and that kind of thing. Those are the nice parts of it. There's also that shared history of residential schools and what they did to everyone, pretty much like Métis, First Nation, and Inuit people did suffer from the consequences of that genocide assimilation policy of Canada. So there's a lot of healing that still needs to be done, not only for individual people, but also for the nations and the communities and Canada as a whole. It's all a shared history, and shouldn't just be put on the First Nations, Métis, Inuit, or Indigenous, or Aboriginal or original people to do that. Canada has a big part to play in that too. So hopefully they understand that it's not all about us, explaining who we are to them. It's about allowing us to be who we are, and respecting and understanding that land and the kinshipscape or kinscape that was talked about today. I really like that. Is really important to our communities and to ourselves, and as the lady before me mentioned, to the issues that we face, with the suicides and with the prisons and with the education, and there's just a lot of issues that I feel, we haven't reached equity yet, and it's up to us to imagine that and make it possible. AFN, Métis Nation, all these places, we're Indigenous, we're Aboriginal. We got to keep, yes, there's differences, but there's that strand that we are connected, where, we should all, focus on that and think of how we can make things better moving forward. And last night I was tossing and turning and thinking of all the division, and, so I kind of wrote a little bit, and I guess I thought about what that might look like, or what I think it might look like. And I guess the best picture I had was when Idle No More was happening. And it didn't matter if you were a card-carrying Native or a Métis or from BC or from East or South or whatever. People wanted their rights. They wanted to protect the land. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to get out of that being oppressed, and they wanted to be empowered. And so I think moving forward, it's going to be a group effort, and I think it would look like something like round dancing in the street with Métis and Inuits and everyone bringing their culture and their uniqueness together, for a common goal and purpose, because that's who we are and this is our land. We share it, we have that history, and it's unfortunate that we have what he called M&Ms, because that's a real threat to the Métis who have pushed so long to be recognized and to finally gain traction legally, and then to have these types of things happening, and then to have it being put back onto the universities, and it's really unfortunate that way. So I really hope that the organizations and the universities and the governments and the grassroots people themselves are able to come together sooner rather than later to address those things, because like Venne, Muriel Venne said, there's world issues that are at play here, war, push a button, North Korea, Donald Trump. So how are we as a people, Indigenous people, gonna protect ourselves and our future generations from those types of threats, and also environmentally, with those types of capitalist ideas, and what are they going to do to our land and our medicines and our animals and the climate change and stuff. So these are all issues that need to be thought of and strategized amongst the many nations and stakeholders, and from the grassroots to the presidents of these organizations. So again, I'd just like to thank everyone that participated and the people that made it happen. And I learned a lot, not only from the panel members, but from the questions and from the elders. I really appreciated that. Reminded me a lot of my parents, because my dad, his mom and dad were Métis, and we ended up on a First Nation on a reserve. So I was thinking last night, every Sunday morning, my dad would get up and play the Red River Jig and fiddle, right? And, we're supposed to be Indians, we're supposed to be this way, and I'm like, I grew up, yeah, exactly. I grew up, that type of way. So, I'm just, grateful that we do have this shared ancestry, and, I'm grateful that you guys shared your knowledge with me, and, we're all related. Thank you. Hi.
Jack Boucher, Buffalo Lake. For me, I'd like to just kind of use these three glasses here as the metaphor for what I'm going to talk about. I guess these two glasses represent the treaty and the Inuit that have been in the federal scene, and we are the Métis, but we've been more or less on the provincial scene until just recently, where we're almost at par with these ones here. And I guess for me, with regards to criteria for membership, that's the issue for me. I'm a Métis, born and raised. I trace my ancestry to the 1600s to France, but primarily we come from Fort Chip, Mequity side. That's where the true Métis started. So I guess on my wife's side, she's treaty, and we've been together for 35 years. We have 2 wonderful children. I'll be home soon. And I guess for me, and it's been brought out that within these 3, there's intermarriages, there's common law relationships, there's relationships. And how do we tie these 3 together? Because we saw slides here today about kinship. It was a very good slide, but the one thing that I saw that I don't know if anybody else saw is that in those kinship relationships, in those relationships that were there, there's bureaucracies tied up in there. And I think that's what we have to discuss. I know I'm just a counselor. I don't say just a counselor. I think there's some import to that in our community. But for me, bureaucracy has to have its place, of course, to run the programs, to run the services. But I think what we have to really look at is the bigger picture is how do we tie these 3 together instead of dividing them by the bureaucracy. And I think that's what I would like to leave with you guys. And for those that may be listening that have the authority to make or not make those changes, to keep in mind. Thank you.
Do any of the youth want to say anything?
I guess I am the youth. Hi, everyone. My name is Karine Martel. First of all, thanks for all the organizers. It was a really great conference. At first, I was just going to live stream it online. I'm from Manitoba. I'm just an hour south of Winnipeg, a small Métis community called Saint-Pierre-Joli. And then I said, no, I saw the list of speakers, and I really wanted to come here. So I'm a master's student in Native Studies at the U of M, and I'm beginning my thesis work and my research. So when I saw the list of speakers, I was like, great, these are the main thinkers in the field. Like, I must meet them, so I must come and network. And I think one thing the conference has really got me thinking is, you know, as a student in Native Studies, like, Native Studies was created as a discipline to give Indigenous peoples a voice in the academy and to kind of bring up Indigenous perspectives. And it ultimately must benefit Indigenous peoples. So I've been spending all this time networking with all these big names I was so excited to meet. So I'm really happy to see like lots of community members, not from my own community because I'm from Manitoba, but I guess I just wanted to say that this conference has given me a lot to think about. And as I begin my research, it's great to just see you all and meet you all, and I guess I can give my email to anyone if you have any ideas of kind of a venue to take, anything we might have missed, because I guess my first purpose for like doing work on the Daniels case was a couple years back, my grandpa, who has like a maybe grade 5 or 6 education level, told me of the Daniels case, and I was doing my undergrad at this point, and I was looking for a theme or I guess a topic for my undergraduate thesis. And so because I was so academically minded, I was like, oh great, Grandpa, that's a perfect thesis topic. Like, you have questions about this case, so do I. It's going to the Supreme Court in a year or so, so I will look at this for my undergraduate thesis. And so I guess I can sort of get caught up in you know, in school, in my books, and in reading, that I want to kind of think back at my grandpa and think that like the purpose of my work with the Daniels case is not just so I can, like, I often say I'm just trying to get through school, but is also because I want my work to serve as a resource for people in my community to understand the case. For example, like, nothing against the MMF, but I went to a presentation by the MMF on the Daniels case, and it was very textual, legally, I don't know, it was in St. Malo, Manitoba, and when you're like, in my community, not a lot of people attend post-secondary education, so people were automatically disengaged. So I kind of view my work coming from my community, being a graduate student, being one of the very few in my community to attend like a graduate level of education, to sort of bridge this gap. And I think that you all have given me a lot to think about here. So I just want to make sure that, you know, it's treading a fine line, wanting my work to be at par, and I still maybe one day will have some legal scholars be reading my work, but I also want my community members and you all and my grandpa to be able to pick up my work and read it and be like, oh wow, I understand something new about the Daniels case that I didn't before. So if there's anything that you all think that we might have missed during this conference, we went over a lot of things, but we could have done a week-long conference on this. I can give you all my email, and like I'd love to have your feedback, community support in my work. So thank you all again for this opportunity.
Thank you. I motion to adjourn. It may die on the floor still. Well, we can certainly end it early if you guys are feeling like it's been a fulfilling couple of days, and it's time to leave. Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'll say a few words. Well, when we started to think of this conference, we didn't know exactly how it would look like, and but there was one thing that I was sure of. It was important for me to make sure that community members would be part of this conference, and to invite people and to allow for people to have a voice and to raise their concerns or raise some questions that were important. And I realized, you know, like just watching, staying a bit on the side, especially in the past day, how rich and invigorating intellectually and also in many different ways this has been for the past 2.5 days. So I want to thank you. Thank you for coming, all of you, and I hope we can do it again, not tomorrow, because it takes a lot of energy, but maybe a couple of years from now, maybe, to maybe have another conference under this Daniels, title, and see, which directions we could take. And certainly, I realized that we could have done more, and probably we could have integrated more themes. But at this point, that's what we could do, and we invited as many people as we could, and with the money that we had, because we have to realize that there's money behind all this too. But I'd like to also say that there is several people that I'd like to thank before we adjourn. And one of them is Chantelle. So if you want to come here, because people have heard about you, but so I repeat, the Rupert's Land Center for Métis Research is Chantelle and I, So, and I don't think I would have been able to pull this together without her. And I really, we've worked together, and it was so easy, and so it's been wonderful. So thank you very much for the work you've done, Chantelle. And I know everybody here and the people that have actually been invited appreciated your guidance along the way. And we had a few challenges, so I was in the back just in case I needed to step in and take the phone and assure that things would be smooth. So thank you very much. I would also like to thank the students that participated throughout those 2.5 days and helped and volunteered. We're lucky because the Rupert's Land Center for Métis Research is housed at the Faculty of Native Studies, and we have access to the students, and we know that at the Faculty of Native Studies we would not exist without the students. So thank you very much. You should get up, the ones who helped, Colin, Leah, Shaylee, and Shaylee. Thank you very much for all your help. Really, it's much appreciated. And Dave also. Dave spent the whole conference tweeting. So that was tweeting. I can't say it. Yeah, I get in trouble because of it. That's okay. And I also would like to thank the Faculty of Native Studies for its support. I felt, sometimes when things were a bit challenging, I could go to Chris. I knew I could go to Chris, and we had a lot of conversations, and I felt extremely supported throughout this adventure. So thank you very much, Chris. And I'd like also to thank the Provost Office at the University of Alberta. They helped us financially in order to be able to live stream this event. And I insisted there again that it was important to have the live stream, as I wanted to make sure that people who couldn't come to the conference could have access to this conference and listen. And of course, I would like to thank Muriel, Campbell, and Elmer, Ghostkeeper, for accepting to be the elders who guided us and gave the blessings throughout the conference. So I will call them again, so we can do a blessing in a way to close the conference. So thank you.
I would like to thank all of you too, and Nathalie, and all of people from Rupert's Land for inviting me. I've told you yesterday I feel really honored to have been part of it. And I just wanted to say that, and I think most of the leadership is gone, the old leadership anyway. I was hoping that they'd still be here. But you know, when we were young in the 60s and we were all gung-ho and we were going to make all kinds of change, the same thing that they were doing here was done to us. And somehow it seems like we get old and we can't let things go. We have to pass stuff on. But I think that you're all pretty amazing. And they all think the same thing. And we're really proud of you, all of you. And yeah, maybe Trump will push the button, who knows. There's nothing we can do about it, but as a Métis person, and I think I speak for many of us, that we're not too worried about what's going to happen. You guys are going to take us the next stretch of the road home. So that's all I wanted to say. I love you all.
Asamina with the Beaudin and Pistamax and Mr. Her and Beaudin. Met dunne miasen kapikskweek met dichtkosten. Again, I've come to this great place of learning. I've learned a lot in this journey. And I've been here before. Sometimes it's been like a deja vu for me. I was here in the 70s, 76, and one of my mentors and great professors is Carl, sitting over there. And we just had a brief reminisce about what we were doing at the time to think. First of all, I think it was to trying to get the Senate, the U of A Senate, to agree to a School of Native Studies. And Carl was the advisor to the Native students at the time. We had a very small club. And Carl had come up from the U.S. He's First Nation or Indian from the U.S. And he understood the fight because I think he had been through it in the States as well. But then look at today. You know, I heard somebody say, you know, there's 1,000 students here now. There's a faculty of Native Studies. There's a dean, you know, for example, and all the young, bright professors, and some of the elders, you know, elder professors like Dr. Catherine Bell and others that had maintained and stayed the course and entered into the good fight. Also, Carl and I talked about the strength of diversity. It's really good to be diverse. And there's a reason why there's 3 Aboriginal peoples in Section 35. You know, the Aboriginal of Canada includes the Indian, Inuit, and Métis. There's reason for that. And as well, there's no definition within the Constitution of the Aboriginal peoples. That's good enough. As Métis, we're Aboriginal. It was accepted back then. We had these types of debates. Identity is a very, very difficult challenge to be able to self-identify. I've taught identity courses, and I'd ask the students, who are you? They would say, well, my mother, is German, my dad is Ukrainian. I'm not asking about your mom and dad. Who are you? You can ask anybody that, and it's such a difficult question to answer, because really it's ineffable. We don't have the words to really describe who we are. And that's good. We all know we're a human being. We're here, for a service, from my perspective. Another great mentor I had was Dr. Peter Mikason. He was a professor in political science here that became the Assistant Deputy Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs for Alberta during the constitutional process. And at one time, most of the Aboriginal leaders, Peter convinced to start reading Robert Ludlum. The series of Robert Ludlum's books, like The Born Identity, etc., as a way to escape, the challenge of the Constitution. But he told me something that I'll always remember. And he became the dean, I think, of academic here on the university, and he was a very, very intelligent and wise man. He was something like me in that he started off with engineering and then went into the social sciences and ended up in political science. But he said, if you look at the law, the written text of the law, he said, it's like a river. A river has two banks. And if the two banks are close together, water really speeds up, maybe like the Saskatchewan. And if the banks are so far apart, like the Mackenzie widens getting close to the Beaufort, it really slows down. He said, but one side of the river is legal. The other side is moral. So when you're reading law, you're trying to interpret the meaning of law in the sense that what is the legal meaning of the law? But you cannot forget you're human, and you bring the moral aspect of the interpretation of the meaning of the law, right? And that's the way we all read a textbook, and we give a moral, not only what's written in the textbook, but a moral interpretation in the textbook, because we're human. That's what we have to do. So when you read the Constitution, the highest law of the land, especially Section 35, you might think on one hand, it's really simple. It isn't very long, but there's a reason for that. The most wise words are very simple words. And I wouldn't really get hung up on the different interpretations and the meaning of identity, because it's meant to be diverse. That's what makes Canada a multicultural country. On the one hand, I tell the students, where were you born? Born in Canada. Well, when you leave Canada, what does your passport say? Canadian. And when you're in another country, what do you wear? A little patch on your clothing anywhere. The Canadian flag. Well, to me, then, you're native Canadian. If you're born in Canada, you're native to Canada. You're not native to France or Germany or wherever else. That's all Canadians, right? But being Indigenous or Aboriginal means that you were the first people on Turtle Island. You know, and when you're in this process of building, interpreting a Supreme Court decision on Daniels, you really can't change it. You know, it's the final. Supreme Court is final. You got to accept it. At some point, we're going to accept it, and then we're going to move along and look for the next challenge. And I'd like to thank the techies. You know, they work silently. They're very dedicated to the work. I've had a chance to. My computer wasn't working right. One of them come up and I don't know what he did, but it was magic, and it started receiving emails again. Thank you very much for your very dedicated hard work. And I'd like to thank Nathalie and Chantelle for their tremendous service. A two-lady team, you know? Wow, what great work. And the dean. And the dean here, I mean, he's very dedicated and passionate about his work as well. And there's so many other bright students that had, and not only students now, but actually practicing. Lawyers, professors, etc. You know, I mean, that's exactly what I think our dream was, Carl. You know, to be able to see this when we planted the seed, and then to see the fruit of this happening, and it's going to continue and it's going to grow. You know, Aboriginal people are making a tremendous comeback from the low point of maybe 150,000 people in the late 40s and early 50s. You know? So with that, I think, would you like to begin saying a prayer? Sure, go ahead.
Kinanaskum kiumagati pechigain. Igo kepe mio paia, kepe mio bigskoya. Kinanaskum yawihia ke mio asik matsuin. Kuichim no kiwetahia ka mio paia. Katahkun namakan maksewatsuin. Suhkeimuin. Mio tehewin. Tautsik joasims nawa ka mio matsihutik. Kamiasik meskan au kausihtama vajakon. Haumina nuhkum. Nuttako hatajuhkan. Pevitapmia kirenaskum. Mosuomakan ewa pie kirenaskum nao. Nuhtahui kirenaskum.
Mahmui nuhtahui mau. Igua kigani no. Mina masompan nohkompan notikapi igua paksamo taakse. Ikbisim tan demiu kiwiak the paspiak ka kiwiak omuta kanigi somuta ka piluhtiak nisogisagao Mr. He in pihtiin mituna miasek. Matsigegwa yuguan ma mercy. Hai hai.